Desert Steve Ragsdale was one of the many colorful people who have called Riverside County their home over the past 100 years. Desert Steve is known for founding and operating the small town of Desert Center that is located between Indio and Blythe in the state of California. But his reputation far exceeded that. Ragsdale was an wandering preacher and cotton farmer, born and raised in Arkansas. In 1907, he and his wife Lydia came to the Palo Verde Valley on the Colorado River to raise cotton. But after World War I, the price of cotton plummeted, and he was forced to quit. At that point, in 1921, he decided to move west into the Chuckawalla Valley and start a way station for travelers on the rough and sandy road from Indio to Blythe. He called his place Desert Center, since it was about halfway between the two locations, at the junction of today's Interstate 10 and State Route 177. Here, Desert Steve began a garage and service station, car towing business, and cafe that was operated by his wife Lydia. He purchased a Model T truck and modified it to serve as a tow car. Steve also sold gasoline that was pumped by hand from a 55-gallon drum. Lydia served food and refreshments to thirsty and tired travelers. Despite of the remote location, that was 50 miles from anything in any direction, the Ragsdale family prospered. Soon came a local market store that sold Coleman camping equipment and a post office. Steve also built several cabins for travelers and a large swimming pool next to the cafe, where travelers could escape the desert heat. Ragsdale was an eccentric person. He placed a sign on the door of the cafe which read, "No drunks, no dogs. We prefer dogs." The Desert magazine reflected his personality. "You need us, we need you. Our main street is 100 miles long." The cafe was open 24 hours a day, drawing in customers with the tagline, "We lost our keys, we can't close." Steve was known to use a stick on travelers who were drunk in his cafe. When Ragsdale needed a teacher for his own children and the few others in Desert Center, the county declined to send one. There weren't enough students to justify the expense. Ragsdale quickly built a basic structure with paperboard walls to use as a schoolhouse, and placed an ad in Los Angeles newspapers looking for an auto mechanic with a large family. He quickly hired one, and a teacher was provided by the county. Ragsdale frequently retreated to his writing shack, near the north tip of the rock formation called the Alligator, across the I-10, where he composed poetry. He wanted to be planted in Desert Center, and even erected his own marker and dug his own grave in front of the Alligator Mountain. Ragsdale was a close friend of many classic desert people, such as Randall Henderson, Marshall South, desert painter John Hilton, and noted biologist Edmund Yeager. Within a few years, Ragsdale operated a number of satellite businesses in locations such as Cactus City, Hell, Skyway, Box Canyon, and Shaver's Well. But it wasn't Ragsdale's garage and cafe in Desert Center though, that gave him the best view in the county. In the early 1930s, Steve decided to build a summer cabin in the mountains, to help escape the desert heat. In 1935, he purchased land that included the top of Santa Rosa Mountain south of the Pines to Palms Highway, today's Highway 74. Santa Rosa Peak, at just over 8,000 feet in elevation, is covered with pines and cedars, and because of its elevation, is generally 20–40 degrees cooler than the desert. Steve cut down some trees, hauled in some rocks, and built a one-room cabin with a large fireplace at this spot, on Santa Rosa Peak. Now Desert Steve had the coolest view in Riverside County. Around 1950, he left Desert Center, living the rest of his days at his log cabin retreat, near the summit of Santa Rosa Mountain. His sons, Stanley, Thurman, and Herbert, took over operations of Desert Center, and Stanley eventually purchased the town from his father. Stanley ran it for decades, adding a hamburger stand, and the Stanco gasoline station. Visiting the log cabin even today, it is completely understandable why Ragsdale decided to build a place there. Looking west, you can see clear to Los Angeles and even beyond. Looking south, one can see into Mexico, whereas looking east, the entire desert becomes visible to the San Francisco Mountains in Arizona. A northward glance can bring into view the mountains around Death Valley. In December 1938, Steve Ragsdale wrote to the Hemet News about his choice of locations and how he enjoyed the site. He stated, "To me, each day and night up here, in quietude, with no man-made noise, no discord, no greed, graft, lies or deceit, but in true happiness, is as a lifetime elsewhere." He added, "I eat a little, sleep a little, read a little, dream a little, write a little, and look and think a lot." Although Steve Ragsdale died in 1971, his cabin on top of Santa Rosa Peak stood for many years after, and was a landmark among those hiking or driving in the Santa Rosa Mountains. Desert Steve was buried in the Coachella Valley Public Cemetery. Unfortunately, a fire destroyed the cabin a number of years ago, but the site is still plainly visible because of the large fireplace that is still there. Today, Desert Center barely survives. The United States Post Office is the only remaining business. The nearest gas station and fast food stores are at Chiriaco Summit, 19 miles away. The palm trees that his son, Stanley Ragsdale, had planted in 1990 are now dying in the desert since his death in 1999. Desert Center is home to agricultural farms, 2 mobile home parks, and the Lake Tamarisk community, with a golf course that was founded by the Kaiser Steel Corporation for mine management. Desert Center reminds of its founder, who once said, "Even the woodpecker owes his success to the fact that he uses his head." What do you think of this little abandoned town? Leave your opinion in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.